Alright gang, we are back in the garage today getting this thing ready for the circuit, which starts in like 5 or 6 days now, I think 6. And we're tackling a major issue this time. I've been kind of putting this off as long as I can, but today I got time and it's going to happen. We've got a crack in the frame on this car that we're going to weld up. We're going to kind of clean up the crack, weld it, and then fish plate it and weld the fish plate on to hopefully have a permanent repair on this guy. So that's what we're doing today. Let's get started. So I got most of the weight on the jack stands, but I got the floor jack just supporting just a little bit. The crack on the frame is right here by the wheel. So I'm kind of trying to support it on both sides of the crack when I weld it up. I don't want it to be like full droop or full tension really whenever I weld it up. I want it to be as straight as I can get it. So, yeah. So there's the crack right there. You can see that this has been welded once before, and it's cracked right through where the weld was. So, and it starts kind of at this more or less, like it really starts here, but you can kind of see that there's just a weak spot where it goes from this hole down to this other hole at the bottom, and the crack goes almost down to this hole. So I think just from the forming of these frame rails and stuff like that, probably had a stress concentration there, and it just became kind of a weak point. But we're going to grind off all this old weld, grind out the crack a little bit, then weld it up, and then fish plate it. So first step's going to be grinding all this out.
Make sure if you're going to weld on something after you clean it to use non-chlorinated brake cleaner.
Alright, so I got a brand new welder about a month ago. This is a primeweld TIG 225X machine, and well, I've been out of the welding game for about 6 months since I sold my last welder. So before we try and weld up that frame, I set myself up a little practice thing here so I can kind of get a feel for this welder. So I've only done 2 welds with this new welder so far. This was my first one and this was my second one. So I'm just gonna do a few runs along here and just try and get a feel for it, get my settings dialed in before I go do it on the frame. This is 1/8 mild steel. It's about the same thickness as what that frame rail is. And then I've got this plate of, again, the same stuff that I'm going to use to make my fish plate out of. So, same surface prep on this one as what I've got over there. I hit it with the grinder and then hit it with the small grinder, just to kind of get all the big gouges out of it. So, we're going to fire up the welder here, turn the gas on, and just get started doing some test runs here. These aren't actual welding gloves. These are just like Harbor Freight work gloves, and I honestly like these a lot for welding versus actual welding gloves. Whatever that was, it wasn't happy about it. Might have had some dirt somewhere, or just not good cleanup. I don't know. Maybe we'll resharpen this tungsten and try it again. Maybe I didn't have enough gas. Do I have gas in the thing? It's got gas. I don't know. So I just turned the welder away from me a little bit. The fan on the welder, the cooling fan for the welder, was blowing right across here. Maybe it was just blowing my gas away every time. Major improvement. I had it on a really low pulse there. Let's try a little bit higher pulse so I can actually see what I'm doing. I couldn't see my tungsten on that one. Yep, alright. I'm gonna move on to the frame. So here's what it looks like after it's been ground out. So you can kind of see it's just starting there and working its way down. It is a very, very tiny crack. But, you know, most big cracks start out as small cracks. So we're just going to try and address this one before it becomes a big crack. So that's what it looks like before we weld. We've got cleaned off a spot up here for the ground clamp. So that's part of the same frame section here. It's just right over there out of my way. I am going to disconnect the ignition box from this thing and throw the battery disconnect switch off before I strike an arc, just because I don't want to blow out any of those sensitive electronics, just to be on the safe side.
All of this could be totally done with a MIG welder. I'm using a TIG welder because that's all I got. So.
Alright, top side is done up there. I'm going to kind of lay on my back and try and get this bottom side. Pretty happy with how it's looking so far. And yep, so we'll wrap it around the bottom side and then we'll come back with the fixed plate. Quite as pretty as the top side, but I'll still take it. I guess what would have helped is if I had a little bit more amperage on the bottom side, just I guess because I'm fighting against gravity. But it's weldered, so fish plate time. Also had a real hard time working that foot pedal that way. I don't know, it just felt like I wasn't able to turn it all the way up. So for making templates, I just like using, you know, Sprite boxes. It cuts a lot easier than like regular cardboard from like an Amazon box or something. And I don't know, I just like it. I feel like it's really good for templating. On the inside of it, it's just this brown color, so you don't have to worry about, you know, trying to draw on some weird color scheme. But I just start out by cutting me off a rectangle that's way bigger than what I know I'll need. I normally am always bending something, so I get one of these bends in there too, just so I have it already made and I know I can get a straight bend, trim off this excess here where it's goofy, and then you got real good templating cardboard. So that's what I like to use. And I like Sprite.
This is an iterative process. I kind of just keep holding it up there and trimming little bits off of it with the scissors until it looks how I want.
I feel like that's pretty good. It's gonna be tough to make it actually, like, fit as tight as this cardboard does, because it's, metal. But nice little steel band-aid. Line it up on two sides of the metal just so you get less to cut. You don't want to like lay it out here and waste this whole piece. So alright, so we're gonna come on over to our vertical bandsaw. The vertical bandsaw. Not plugged in. It's never plugged in. I don't know why I always think it's gonna be plugged in. How about that?
So here I'm marking the two ends of the bend and then just using that as a template to trace it across, and then putting a little notch in the bend area, using the bandsaw to make it easier to actually do the bend. Forgive the strobe light effect here. It's something to do with the way that my LED work light and the frame rate on the camera or something like that. I'm not sure. It doesn't look like this in real life. It needed a little bit extra bend, so I just stuck it back in a vise and bent it a little bit further. So there was a big gap on this right side just because the metal wasn't flat on the frame rail, and I don't have an oxyacetylene torch, so what I'm doing is just kind of using a TIG torch with no filler to get that fish plate metal heated up real nice and good so that I could form it around with a hammer to get a nice flush fit on the fish plate to the frame rail. That way I'm not trying to fill like a giant gap with the welder. The last part that I'm getting set up to weld here is that area where I cut the notch in it and that I used to bend the fish plate metal.
So this isn't the best work I've ever done, but I think it'll hold. There's a little tiny spot in the corner where I couldn't get to in this corner, but I welded as much as I can, and I think it's going to be okay. I'm going to hit it with a little bit of spray paint while it's still pretty nice and warm here, because that's what I found to be pretty good for, yeah, paint stuff when it's hot, and it sticks really good. And it dries fast. Flashlight's still on the camera, but job's done. It's as done as I'm gonna get it. So we're gonna put the wheels and tires back on the front. The new wheels and tires, new ones, on the front. Hopefully they fit. Put this dude back on the ground, and we're gonna clean up a little bit because I got the tungsten sharpener, the regular belt sander, and you know it's a mess. Time to clean up.